Hey everyone, today we're talking license prediction, and my personal preferences for what I'd like to see come in Year 8. Be sure to let me know your own thoughts and license wishes down below. I believe it was leaked, or behavior confirmed, that there will be 2 licenses being implemented this year after Nicolas Cage. I honestly forgot where I heard it from. It was leaks or behavior, I think. I'm not too sure. This is nice though, knowing some licensed content is in fact coming. Terrifier is a pick some of you may not know. It's a series of 2 films that I just watched fairly recently, but I think would fit very well in DBD. The main villain of the films is Art the Clown, a sadistic evil entity of sorts that attacks people on Halloween. He's kind of like a combination of Freddy, Myers, and Pennywise. He's silent throughout the films, but does lots of physical movement and comedy, I guess. In my opinion, he's also genuinely creepy to look at, and quite a scary presence. He wears this same outfit throughout the films, and he carries a trash bag of tools which he has slung over his shoulder. There's no distinct weapon, I guess, but really there's a bunch he uses that could be picked. For the survivor side of things, the lead from either of the films would work well, I think. I think debatably it could come without a survivor, and it wouldn't hurt it that much, as a lot of the characters aren't overly memorable. For a map, they could have the abandoned carnival, which is super creepy looking with all the abandoned rides, and it could have the centerpiece of the Terrifier haunted house from Terrifier 2. It is possible they wouldn't introduce a license like this, as the films are particularly brutal and quite violent, and DBD seems to generally stray away from this kind of thing. I personally think it would work well, and I don't think they need to include these aspects, as the character of Art I think is really the series' main draw. The Walking Dead is one I've mentioned a bunch before, but I really just think it fits very well, and it's the perfect license to incorporate into the game. It has a huge cast of characters to choose from, who could easily fit into the realm and work really well. I also think The Walking Dead is great because it has a bunch of different options for characters to be taken from. The main TV show, the spin-offs, and the Telltale games. The best characters they could add would be Rick, Daryl, Maggie, Glenn, pretty much any of the main cast from throughout the show, I think. The opposite side is a lot harder, if they were to introduce a killer character for the chapter. I've heard lots of talk for someone like Negan, and although I do somewhat like this idea, and think it could be good with him being quite talkative, as well as having a fairly iconic look with the leather jacket and the bat, I honestly have no idea what his power would be. A better option in my opinion is a character we saw much later in the series, Beta. He was a member of a group named the Whisperers, who would wear zombie skin to blend in with them. In the later seasons he even commands and leads the zombies. With zombies already being in the game, it could be cool to have a character able to direct or lead them, a kind of AI power like Knight. This is something I think I mentioned a while back in the last video I did on licenses I'd like to see. I pretty much stick by it, I think. The Walking Dead really deserves a spot, and would work well alongside everything else. The Conjuring is something I'd like to see too. My only reservations about this one is that we have a lot of ghostly type characters in the game already, and I worry it would be too many if we introduced even more. However, I do like the whole theme of this film, with the ghost hunting equipment and stuff like that. It feels very much like Phasmophobia. It also has some great characters to pick from. Most likely the Warrens would be the picks though, or even just one of them. Lorraine Warren, I believe, has powers of some kind, or some clairvoyancy, so maybe she'd be an interesting pick as the survivor. I do think the way they present the characters is quite scary though, with the atmosphere created and such. I know a more popular enemy character could be the Nun from the later films, which may work better and be a bit more unique compared to the Ghost from the first film. Either way, I'd just really like to see it be implemented in some form, as I enjoy the films. The first film also has a great possible map with the house they visit with the tree outside. It could be set up with all the ghost recording and monetary equipment around. I think that'd be pretty cool. Alien, I guess, is my boring pick, as it's an obvious choice, and although I'm not that familiar with the series, I love the setting and I love the design of the alien. With the addition of more non-human characters recently, Alien could easily fit right in now. It has so many options in terms of power, perks, and all the rest. I think the introduction of Singularity shows that horror sci-fi works very well in the game. I've personally loved the new map and planet of Devaka. It feels so fresh and interesting, and just really fun to explore. It's also broadened the possibilities of what a map can be. It doesn't just have to be an earthly location, it can really be just about anywhere. If we had a space station map or a map in quote-unquote space, I think it could easily be accepted at this point, and wouldn't even feel out of the ordinary. The obvious combo for this chapter would be the Xenomorph, Ellen Ripley, and then the space station, which is apparently called the Gateway Station, or even the alien homeworld that I believe appears in the later films. Out of the remaining classic horror options, this is easily the highest on my list for things I'd like to see introduced. Next, I have a string or grouping of somewhat jokey chapters that I'd like to see, but will probably never happen. However, with the addition of Nicolas Cage, it doesn't seem too far-fetched. I think they would bring a good balance to DBD. After all, with all these universes, taking characters from a more comedy-based film would be interesting, I think. My picks for these more jokey choices are Shaun of the Dead, Zombieland, and The Cabin in the Woods. All of these chapters would probably need to be survivor-focused. Shaun of the Dead could be a survivor chapter, adding both Simon Pegg and Nick Frost's characters, both of which I reckon they could get the voices for too. Zombieland, they could pick literally anyone from the main cast, and The Cabin in the Woods, probably the lead Dana, and you could probably bring in some of the monsters too. The monsters in that film directly parody many of the ones in The Realm, so it would be kind of funny if we got a chapter like this that brought along the parodied versions of the characters as skins, or something like that. Maybe that's a bit of a hassle to organize, it probably almost definitely is, but it would be amazing, I think. I also think introducing more celebrity actors known for horror would also be quite cool. Personally, I think if DBD is going to be the Hall of Fame of horror, then horror comedy deserves a place here too. This has somewhat been accepted already with the introduction of the Scary Movie mask for Ghostface. It seems they are open to this idea too. This may be pushing it, but as a final additional thought, I do think something like Scooby-Doo would be very cool to see added, even if through a small means like adding charms related to the animated shows. It doesn't exactly fit DBD to introduce them as actual characters, but it is undoubtedly iconic horror. Alright, well, that's gonna do it. I do hope you enjoyed, and let me know what licenses you'd like to see down below. Thanks, and goodbye.